Plants vs. Zombies Garden Warfare 2 is a game known for its variants. Quite a lot of variants. What if there were more? Loads more. 7 years ago, when Plants vs. Zombies was in its prime and the world made sense, if you happen to hop onto the PvZ Garden Warfare subreddit, you may have seen a peculiar looking Reddit post with some familiar looking names and concepts. That's right, the concept of Infinity, Edmure Amazing, and many other characters in this mod is over 7 years old. Infinity would be awful. Yeah, I already showed you with the mobilized P-Gatling. Janitor? Oh, we were robbed. So a few years later, there was little purple zombie with his brand new gaming PC and with a dream. Make variants. Loads of the variants. So he got Garden Warfare 2 and downloaded the Frosty mod editor and began frantically looking through the message logs of Frostbite modding and harassing more experienced users with a constant barrage of questions until he finally got this. The piss shooter. This is the first custom character I ever made. A yellow pea shooter that shoots urine. This is the only footage I have of it. It was humble beginnings. The next notable creation of my modding career was something familiar. Playable brown coat in Garden Warfare 2. The fact that I still get unironic comments on this video calling me a fake fraud just goes to show how much of a rousing success this video was. So I had a basic understanding of how to mod Garden Warfare. The world had shut down due to a vile plague, and I had nothing better to do. Loads of variants was finally born, except there wasn't loads of them. There was one. A really beta version of Admiral Amazing. Utterly enthralling. I didn't know how to make custom effects yet, so he just shot air. After a couple of miserable failures, I managed to get something working. The Admiral was shooting a mysterious blue substance. Another few iterations and we had a makeshift water pistol, except it looked like it was shooting some PS2 paint effect rather than water. There was also a weird bug where every other shot was just invisible for some reason. These weird, inexplicable bugs will be a reoccurring thing. Also, this happened when I selected it sometimes, so I gave up with that. Then I made a corn that emits 10 kilotons of carbon dioxide every 4 minutes. I refined the effects and we have the first mostly finished variant, the creamed corn, who shoots steam cream at zombies and has increased regeneration. We jump ahead a bit and look, proto versions of Infinity and Cubic P. Infinity used to have this weird hovery jump thing, but yeah. Anyway, I made more and more variants like the buttery corn, the ZPD officer, and even brought back my man Admiral Amazing. Found out how to add custom sounds, and good god, adding custom sounds is the most agonizing process of all time, but we'll talk more about that later. And we have the first version of loads of variants. Slightly noticeable increase in variants. Cupid Flower used to hit 5 damage, what the hell? Also, it didn't have a legendary meter and just permanently had a red awful aura around it at all times. Also, the Zomper was in this version. I think I removed it in a later version when I added a secondary weapon to Chomper, but anyway, people liked the mod, and I added more stuff and refined and polished the variants more. Even did a side project where I made a Dandelion and a Hypnoshroom class. One of these was even ported into the mod. More and more variants were added, like the Disguising Illusion Brains, the Evil and Scary Phantom Cactus, variants for the Hovergoat and the Torchwood, and the Pickle. Some older variants got legendary meters, like Cubic P and his iconic legendary mode, Hexaractional Ascension. Even added a new class, the Neo Squash, with his iconic giant fuck-off laser, as well as the backup dancer and his iconic orb. We're at a point now where there are a moderate amount of variants, and I decided to experiment with upgrades. but they were actually 5 different sub-weapons for every variant with different gimmicks and such, like the Z6 crossbow. This is all scrapped now, but if you want to see what did what, there's a video about it. Anyway, all was going well. The mod was rather niche at the time, but one fateful day on May the 24th, 2021, I got a message from someone you might be familiar with, and he made videos about loads of variants.
Get the fuck out of here!
What the fuck?
It's always funny seeing how people react to the abominations present in this mod.
With loads of variants. It's a mod by the Purple Zombie. I believe has actually done quite a lot of modding stuff in his time. He's also got his own YouTube channel. He does a lot of his own stuff over there.
Oh god, does he know about PvZ plush? This skyrocketed not only loads of variants, but my channel into moderate popularity. I'm pretty sure I reached 1,000 subs around this point, but I was growing tired of churning out variants, so decided to do something that I greatly regret. Modify garden and graveyard ops. Originally, the plan was to have every single map have a different selection of enemies and special waves. I started with Zen Peak and well, what is that? A strange scientist with a glowing aura and a badge. This is when the mighty elite pickle immobilized comedy was born. There were also these glowing yellow weeds called Zen weeds that went invincible at half health if you didn't kill them fast enough. Thank god these were scrapped. Although in current versions you can spawn them and other used enemies in during turf takeover, so you can experience such outstanding creations like the Puffer Zombie. I also decided to make Colosseum a hellish red nightmare realm where the ops matches were much more difficult. The iconic glowing red weeds and brown coats would have frequently spawned here, however the game kept sometimes just randomly crashing for no reason, so I scrapped all of this, but kept 2 features, the red crown weeds and brown coats, and elite bosses. I signed my own downfall further by modifying the super boss waves to take like 4 hours by having one big boss that has like 10,000 health that skedaddles after dealing 25% of its health and spawning a horde of enemies like what Nomus does in Infinity Time. Speaking of Infinity Time, I decided to change that as well by asking someone who had made it so normal characters can be selected in the mode instead of the big robots and literally dumping it into the mod. Development of the mod began to speed up as I opened a Discord server where people could suggest their ideas, and then I'd do a little poll thing, and then people would vote, and the one that won gets put in the game. This is how we got such iconic variants such as NRG Brains, Vanta Flower, Railgun Cactus, Old Man, and even Ted T Tech himself. Now there really were loads of variants. Then I decided to add a weird upgrade system like the one in Battle for Neighborville, kind of, where you could select 3 modifiers that would change how the character played. I decided it would be a good idea to give 5 of them to every variant. The normal game has 121 playable characters, and this mod adds 105 to that amount. So I was gonna add upgrades to 226 different variants and characters. 1,130 unique upgrades to the game. That's a bit optimistic, to say the least. This decision killed all enjoyment I had for the mod. So the last update of loads of variants added 5 new upgrades for the pea shooter, who now has 10, and re-added the Zomper. I prioritized upgrades over variants and it died. Sounds kinda familiar, so that leaves us to now, with an incomplete mod where only 5 characters have unique cosmetics and the rest are abominations of default cosmetics. Also, at some point, I massively fucked up the mod, and I thought it was irreparable, so I was like, this is the last update of loads of variants, but I fixed it, so yay! So that was the timeline of loads of variants, how it went from a Reddit post with 31 upvotes to a mildly popular Garden Warfare 2 mod that I suffer through the bad game design of sometimes for attention. So you know the when, and the why, and the what, and the where, and the who. But do you know the how? Probably not. I was originally going to have a section where I go over all of the variants, but like I've already been doing that in my videos, and the insights of their development boil down to, I thought it would be funny. So sorry for anyone looking for the extensive history of the pickle. Loads of Variants uses the Frosty mod editor, which allows you to mod Frostbite engine games, like that one. So if you haven't watched my horrendously complicated tutorial that I'm going to remove soon because it is completely outdated and you should not follow it. Back in my day, we didn't have any of those fancy weapon creator plugins or bundle managers. We couldn't actually make a new variant. We had to scrounge around in the files, look for an unused weapon, and build off of that. Luckily, Garden Warfare 2 has hundreds of unused weapons for some reason. What I did was export a weapon I wanted to use, import it over the unused weapon, tweak it a bit to make it not crash instantly, sometimes edit to a network registry so it doesn't crash instantly, and voila! You got your brand new variant. Repeat that dozens of times and you got loads of variants. Because of this, you get funny things like Bullet Brains being a horrifically modified version of the Bling Hill Station, or the Gingerbark House being Chester Cheetah's balls. I actually began to run out of unused weapons at some point, which is one of the reasons why I decided to rework Infinity without the robots so I could get like 15 variants out of it. Really melted them down for scrap. Remember Super P Jump? It's gone. I used it and turned it into the Zomper and no one even noticed. That's how memorable Super P Jump is. Literally no one cares that it's gone. So sounds pretty simple, right? Just copy and paste a couple of things and mod's done. Small issue. The Frosty editor is really unoptimized, or my computer's just ass. Or both. Either way, every single load took anywhere from 10 to 40 minutes. Every time I wanted to change a single number, I had to save the mod, export the mod, and launch the mod. Every single time I load into the game and oh, I forgot to do this one specific thing and the game crashed. Guess I gotta twiddle my thumbs for 30 minutes whilst it reapplies it. And this thing eats RAM like a gluttonous beast. Many times my computer has just locked up and sometimes blue screened because my CPU was being incinerated. This is why I do not work on the mod anymore. It just takes too long. Basically, modding this game sucks, especially the custom sounds. Genuinely. I sometimes struggle with hearing things because if you don't set up a sound patch correctly, your ears could just be blasted by a 500 decibel supersonic weapon, or sometimes the sound just leaves. Ah, well, you could just set it up properly then, dumbass. That's the thing. I have no worldly idea of how to set up a sound patch properly, and to my knowledge, I don't think anyone in the modding community does to this day. In summary, I personally do not recommend modding this game. Anyway, so how do the iconic upgrades from loads of variants work? Not well. Here is a brief yet stupidly complex summary of how this works. Each variant now has a unique buff identifier that tracks what variant they are. When you have the new upgrade equipped, which is bound to an unused ability slot, it detects what variant it is by using the buff identifier that the variant has. It applies a second buff to the character that turns on a logic blueprint. Or if it's a simpler upgrade, it just applies like a ammo increase or a damage aura or something. Most of the time, this logic blueprint uses a stat event identifier. A stat event is how the game tracks things for gaining experience, like killing people or placing a bot. When the event is tracked, the logic blueprint applies a third buff to the character. This is really scuffed. There are ways to bug out the game and steal other characters' upgrades, but it mostly works, so I don't really care. On to the next section. Elite bosses are a new tier of enemy, much like champions. Except instead of having more health, they have more health, but also do some stupid bullshit thing that makes playing Ops a living hell. This includes getting a map-wide toxic aura at half health, getting a map-wide electric aura at half health, getting brief periods of invulnerability, spamming certain abilities constantly, transforming into other characters, disabling every single ability of every character and running away, activating a legendary mode whenever the hell they want, becoming obscenely large, becoming red and evil and having a 50% damage multiplier, or just having some kind of short-range debuffing aura that does nothing except punish you even more for playing as a melee range character. Elites are a scourge on loads of variants ops mode. One of them are guaranteed to spawn in during a special wave. Every time there isn't a boss on the slot machine, an elite boss will spawn in its place. This does not affect the quantity of enemies, it just throws a mini-boss tier enemy on top of all the things it spawns in, which makes certain waves of ops really difficult, and sometimes they can just spawn in for no reason on non-special waves at random. The evil red elites have a fun thing where they replace 10% of the base variant that spawns in. How do the elites work then? Take the base variant, scale it up by 30%, make it immune to almost every stun in the game for some reason, and then give them a behavior file that makes them activate the stupid bullshit button when specific criteria is met, usually when at low health. Also, I added a thing where you can summon the different elites in the backyard because I thought it to be funny. When I inevitably complete my mission of playing ops as every new variant, I should do an elite tier list based on how much I want to off myself whenever it shows up. As I said earlier, Infinity Time has been modified too. You can now just be whatever the hell you want. The health and damage of the enemies has been toned back a bit so you don't die instantly. And the gnome floaties... I don't like the gnome floaties very much. Because I didn't know how to remove them, I just made them have like 5 health. Infinity has these new enemies called Wraiths, which are these ominous orbs that chase you around and kill you, like the Singularities if they were rendered on a Nintendo 64. Gnome elites also exist, such as... I will eventually do a video on Infinity Time in this mod. It's a whole incident in of itself, so... I don't know what to call this section, but a lot of the stuff from the base game was changed in this mod, such as Chomper's back swallow button being mapped to a separate input, and every Chomper variant having a form of slobber shot from Battle for Neighborville. There's also other stuff like Citron having less health for some reason. There's a whole set of different changes I cannot be bothered to go over. Like, I don't think many people will be interested to learn that the Sunbeam's entrance and exit delays have been decreased from 1 second to 0.5. There's a document on the entire mod from like 2 years ago in the comments, so have at it if you really care about this sort of stuff. There is quite a lot of content that was just scrapped from this mod, which saves me a couple extra rounds of the Ops Gauntlet. For example, most of the variants in this Reddit post from 7 years ago did not make the cut. Phantom Cactus was originally split into 2 variants, one being a burst cactus, and the other being a cactus that gets crits to charge a meter, and the pickle was just called Toxic Cactus. I'll speedrun through all of them. Bee Shooter, shoots beehives. Cauliflower. Oh my god. Damage ramps up as it fires, but if it fires too long it overheats. Rex Chomper swallows zombies 1 second faster, but has fuck all health. Chester Chomper but with no sauce. Triplet Cactus fires in a burst of 3. Bullseye Cactus gets critical hits to fill a legendary mode which makes all shots home in on enemies. No wonder why these two together form the devil. Stalecorn, basic bitch toxic variant, boring. Withered Rose, Necrose, but instead of making zombies take more damage, she makes zombies deal less damage. Sounds really obnoxious. Hex Rose, Zen Cactus but a rose. Boring. Dark Citron has message damage fall off and deals more damage up close. Don't all Citrons have that anyway? The costumes were all gonna have unique abilities like Blazing Blast, but it deals more damage, and spawning a sugar cube. Tribal Warrior, soldier with a charge up crossbow, could have had the fucking pillagers in Garden Warfare 2. Gorilla Soldier, deals less damage but has splash. Boring. Janitor shoots a water bucket at plants that deals loads of damage but has 1 ammo. Mathematician, every shot does double the damage of the last. Botanist shoots pots at plants which explode like shrapnel. Triathlon Star shoots 3 medals at once. Fill a legendary meter to shoot 5 at once. Fencing Star shoots giant fucking swords at plants. Pinball Star generic electric variant. The Blimp fires rapidly blown up balloons that pop in the plant's face. So this is a close range imp. Horrible. Mech would have been a hot air balloon. Commander Imp shoots 2 high damage projectiles and his mech is a fucking tank. How the hell was I implementing this? Cave Imp, ice variant, but it has the mammoth mech. All 3 of Deadbeard's variants made it in, so good for him. Fleshy Brains has a 50% speed buff but less health. Hovergoat variants also had custom abilities like the Ho-Ho Horn or the Wacky Wave. So that was an extensive list of all the variants that didn't make the cut, but I'm not done. Loads of variants was supposed to continue, and in preparation I made a document called Upcoming Content. That was a fat lie. Apocalypto Squash fires a giant beam as a primary weapon. Sounds funny. Napalm Dandelion fires a single seed that explodes into a fiery mess. Phaser Tank, shots will deal more damage the less ammo you have. Razor Tank shoots rotating buzzsaws at people. Taser Tank, electric burst variant. Glacier Tank, how many of these are there? Like, goddamn. What do you think a variant called Glacier Tank does? Laser Tox, should have been called Laser Stank. Hellbleater, a hovergoat variant that fires off a single bolt of hot plasma that leaves behind a cloud of death that takes a second to form. Anyone stood in this cloud will be burned and spread the fire to anyone else near them, so a fire and electric variant at the same time. Groundbreaking stuff. Goat Punk fires steam missiles at the plants that have homing. Pinball Star, hello again. What? I was going to add more variants to the Torchwood? Is 11 not enough? So that's all the unused variants in the... Just kidding! I actually very briefly came back to do the mod. I was originally going to do a video series where I turned BFN upgrades into variants. Homing P was the Witch P, which had homing. Horrible. Zen P, which was like Zen Cactus, and it shoots 5 at once. Party P, based off of the Party Time upgrade. You can guess what that does. I also made a pea shooter that was based on that one upgrade that shot bean bombs further, but didn't go too well. I also made it do this. And then I got it working, but it seems really broken, so probably for the best it didn't happen. There was also a cactus with a shotgun. Prickly pump shots. Okay, that actually is all the variants that didn't make it in. Just kidding, here's some more variants. Now here's some more variants that were removed from the mod for whatever reason. From this video, there is the Server Technician, which crashes the game. This was actually Demolition Expert before I knew how to make it work without crashing. And Cupid Flower was called Remedial Flower, and the Piranha Chomper was called the Nibbler. Why was it changed? That's a funny name. There's also an elite boss called Pea Daddy, which was a giant pea shooter that summoned a harem of smaller pea shooters to attack you. Captain Cyberfraud, who uses the IP Obtainer. This variant was a work in progress and you could spam the zoom button to shoot really fast. Really odd variant. And the last unused variant, which I only have a few screenshots of, is... Stuart. No, this is not a bit. I even have a character icon of him. I don't have any footage of him. Wait, hang on. Look at the icons. There's more unused variants. Who the fuck is Bradley? Another bloody Torchwood. To finish off this segment, I will now play a series of funny clips from development. Loads of Variants might not be the most perfect of mods. Thank you for watching this video, and again, thank you for 10,000 subscribers. Farewell. I'm really bad at ending videos.